Okay, so let me just quickly create this stuff and to use that to explain. So talking about that unit, if you are to create a line now, for instance, we go from here to here. You can see the value we are having is in decimal value. So 40 something points this. So I said for us to change, you go to our unit setup, UN for short. And as Mr. Falabi, he always likes icon. So you go to your application menu. So if you click on this A icon, you will see your drawing utilities. Then inside the drawing utilities, you are going to see units. Alright? Okay. So once you open the unit setup, so we want to now switch to architectural unit system. So we'll come here under our length type, we change it from decimal to architectural. Alright, so if we change that to architectural, you can see that the precision changes. Okay, so the precision we are now having is 0 to this. I don't understand the architectural method of it, but then we leave that. Then your insertion scale, we're going to change this insertion scale. So I'm going to change this to feet or inch. Right? So let's just make it inch, for instance, and then we'll just click on OK. And that is set. So the next time I try to create the line now, look at what I have. Can you see the value? Okay. So the way we input these values, all right now, is that if you want to input architectural units, talking of in terms of length. So let's say, for instance, I want to draw a line of this length, 3 feet and maybe 7 inches. Alright. So what do you call this thing again? Help me. This symbol. What do you call it? What do you call it? Apostrophe. What are these double one? Quotes. Okay. So we use apostrophe for feet, and we use this quotation mark for inch. So it's very important. This is what we use for feet, and this is what we use for quotation mark. So if I'm to create a line of this length, 3 feet and 7 inch. So what I'll do is I will move my line. So I'll just move towards direction and just type the value. So if I say 3, I'll have to put that sign apostrophe. It's the one beside our enter. I don't know. You can see it on your keyboard. And if you look at it in my inputs too, you can see it at the top. Then you don't put a space. You just type the 7 just by the side. So I just say 7, shift and that same sign. So you see this. So if I press enter, it's going to draw that line of that length. All right. So let's say this one I'm coming down with 2 to, let's just say 2 to 4. So I'll say 2, 4, shift and this, and it creates that. Do you understand? All right. So I'll just do that. But now this is where the issue now comes in, where the issue arises, and that is if you want to bring your dimension. So if I bring up my dim lim to dimension this guy from here to here, look at what I have. Okay. It's beside your lens. You will now shift to that. Okay, now we've created this. We know that we've created the line, this length, and this 2, 4. And from here to here is this, and from here to here is this unit. Let's bring our dimension. So look at it now. If I bring up my dimension, linear dimension, please, I need us to please bring up my linear dimension to get dimension of this guy. You notice what we're having instead of 3 to this and this. So the reason why we are having this is because our units, even though the same way we've changed the units for our length, we need to also change the unit for our dimensions. Do you understand? So that means we have to go to our dimension style to change the units. So I'll just go to dim style to go and change my units. So if I go to the dimension style, it's going to load up this. I will just modify it. All right. So I'll go to modify, go to the primary unit. So if I go to the primary unit, you notice the unit format is in decimal. So I'll switch this from decimal to architectural. Since I'm using architectural in my lens, so I'll switch this to architectural and I'll click on OK, close. Now, you modify this guy because so you go to modify. So you'll be here, you just go to the primary unit. So in your home tab, you come to your dimension. Okay. You come to this dimension, you just click down here in your home tab. Then you see your text style. This is your text style, this is your dimension style. So you click on this icon. It's going to bring this. That is in your home tab. But if you are in your annotate tab, you know it's going to be under dimension. Click here, manage dimension style. All right. So you modify. Have you gotten the rest now? Okay. So now that we've changed this, if you bring your dimension up, see what it reads now. So it's going to read the appropriate value. Can you see? So we have that, and we have this. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because of the architectural design you have. There are some exercises that have imperial settings or system of units, so you need to know how to switch from that. So now we have that done out of the way. So let's go back to what is this class. We were supposed to look at table before we do what we have for today. Okay, so today we are going to be looking at properties. We're going to be looking at properties and layers. That's what we're meant to do today, properties and layers. But we'll quickly look at that table. Once we're done with table, we'll go to properties, then we'll go to layer. That's what we have for today. Then we'll do our classwork. So let's go to the table. So if I go to the annotate tab, there is a section for my table here. So if I click on this table, so all I need to do here in the table is just to click on this table icon. So if I click on the table icon, you can also do that in your home tab. You can see that in your home tab under the annotation, you have your table. So any of the options works. So if I click on the table, it loads up this dialog box for me to set my table. So let's wait for waiting for it to load. So I'm sure yours should have come up. Table should have loaded on your own system. But my own system is now slow. Let's just chill. In your home tab, under your annotation, you see table. Okay, so this is what we have. When you click on table, so let's just look at this first, please. So if you notice, this table is divided into various sections. So you have your table style section, you have your insert option, you have your preview that shows, then you have your insertion behavior, and then you have the columns and the whole sections. But then what we need here to work on for now is under this place. We don't have anything to do here. We'll go back to this later on where we create our own table style. All right. But let's look at this, how we insert this. So we have two insertion behavior. You can either insert by specifying an insertion point or by creating a window. So then the difference between specifying an insertion point and creating a window is that for insertion point, you have to set the distance of each of the columns and the rows. So the width of your columns and the height of your rows, you have to set that. So if you know what height is meant to be, you have the values you can, that's when you can use your insertion point. But if you don't know the height it should be, then you would want to use your window option. So the window option is just a way of you creating a rectangle to create a border or a margin. The total size of the table then is going to arrange it accordingly. Do you understand? So, um, you get, but it's there. Some people like precision, accuracy, that your table must be this wide, the columns and the rows must be this high. So that's where this is. You notice if I come up to this, I have some values for me to set the width of my column and the height of my row. But if I come to specify window, you notice all those ones go away. They go away, meaning if I'm dragging, it is automatic, so it will just drag, create the width by itself. So we're going to be using this window option. Then we have option to set how many columns we want and how many rows. So we know what columns are, the vertical arrangement, and the rows are the horizontal. So how many columns do I want? We have that. This is set to be 4. And for rows, this is set to be 7. You can change this to anything you want. Then the next thing you have is your cell style. You want to set it. So basically you have three different options here. You have your first row, you have your second, and you have all other rows. So the way tables are basically we know is that the first row is always the title. The next row holds our headers. Then every other that data now come next. But then I don't know why some might want to change this, but they just left it. So that means if I want this first row to be the header, I can make it the header, make the second row the title. But it has been set for us, so I don't know why we want to do that. So I actually don't feel this is necessary. This option, I don't think it's necessary. But AutoCAD tries to make things for weird people, people that want to be, you understand, they are just weird. So once you are done with creating this, you have set everything, or you just click on OK. So if I click on OK, so it's going to tell me to create a window, specify your first corner point. So maybe this is going to be my first corner point, and then go to the other corner points. You can see, so once I go to this place, I click, and that gets my table out, and it's going to default to the first, what's it called, the first, this place here. It's going to default to this first row for me to start typing. So I can start putting my title, put my header, and you understand? It's just it's because I have it selected. It's just like Excel. You know Excel have all these number tabs. It's just for you to identify the name of a particular cell. Just like Excel, you know if you have A1, A1 means if you trace from your vertical and horizontal, the name, wherever it is, that's the name of the cell. So that's just what this. If I deselect this, you notice you don't have the number. So the numbers will not print. It's just a visual guide for us. So if I click here now, the number shows up. I can see the number. So I can come into this place and start typing whatever I want. So this becomes, so I can say this is my, do you understand? Then if I hit enter, it comes to the next cell. I can use my arrow key to go to the next cell, my side arrow, my down arrow, up arrow. So choose whatever cell you want. Eh? You can use cursor too. You can click here, and I can type whatever I want to type. Yeah, you can. I'm actually coming there. No, no problem. Just explaining all this first. So you can input all your information here. Then if you want to adjust, like Esther asked, so you can select one of the cells. You can see this top here, or you can even use this to adjust. So if I click here and I remove this, it's going to adjust the whole table. Just click any one of this cell. You notice these hot grips. So they are there for us to adjust. So if I bring this, I can move this. Do you get it? Then I can say, okay, if I select this cell, I'm going to adjust this particular rows of cell. Maybe this is going to be this. And notice affect that. Another thing you can also do with this is that I can also merge cells, just like in Excel. So if I want to merge cells, you can see all these things here. I actually don't need to come in, but they are here. So I can highlight cells by just clicking and dragging. If you select any of the cell, you have to select a cell first. If I select any of the cell, it's going to highlight. You see those dots around. So if you want to change the width, you come to any of the widths, click on it, then move to where you want it to get to, click again. If you want to change the height, that means you have to click from that top, right? So I'll click on the top one, you can switch the height, you can see what happens. Then there is this one by this corner here. You can see there's this icon by this corner. That also allows us to set other things. If I click and move down, it allows us to select. You can see, you can use it to select multiple cells. Okay, it's just me highlighting multiple cells. Okay, but another way you can highlight multiple cells is just by doing a window selection or just drag. So if I drag over these cells, yeah, it's going to highlight them. You can see. So if I drag over these ones, can you see what's happening? I'm dragging over these cells, it's going to highlight those cells. So if I want to merge cells, I can actually merge cells by just dragging. So if I say, okay, I want to merge these two cells together, I can drag over these two cells, let go, then right click, then you see option to merge. So you can merge all, you can merge by row and merge by. We're going to look at what all these things do. So if I say, okay, merge all. Okay. I was trying to okay. I don't understand. Okay, so you want to drag the table away from there. So you can select the whole table like this by clicking on this. Select this first, then click on this corner guy. It's going to select the whole table. Sorry, my mouse double clicks. So once you select this guy, so you select the whole table. Once you select the whole table, you can use your move command. So if I do my move, I can move the whole table, or you can just do this. Select this. Once this table is selected, you can move this table to wherever you want. Hmm? Okay. Is what? Cells. This is it. This one. This. Is this? The thing is, you guys are not looking at what I'm doing. I'm not doing. How is it different? It's different. Please just look at. You will have time to do your. Just look at what I'm doing, and I'm recording. So it's not like if I wasn't recording now, you can be saying which you are practicing. You can always go back and watch it if you don't get. But please, all right. So if you select this, so if I select this guy here, I can decide to move this to set the width of all the tables. You have that, and also for the height, you have this. Then you can use this to add more. So I can add more into it. Then you know the selection you had. If you have this selection, you can use this to stretch just like we had. But then looking at how we can merge those cells. If I highlight these cells, all of them like this, I'm going to talk about the three different merges that we have. So if I highlight these cells, let me just highlight from here to this place. Okay? And I right click. Okay, let's use the icon because you said you like using icons. So if I come to the merge cells option, I can merge all cells, I can merge rows, and I can merge columns. If you select your table, this table cell will come up by default, right? Did it come up? It should come up. If you select any cell in the table, this tab must come up inside that table. Just select any cell inside the table. So once that comes up, this is just giving you the setting for the table. I think let me just walk from here, going this way, instead of me going to match first. Okay, so just like your Excel, you know you can select each cells by just clicking on the cells. You can also select a row or a column by clicking on the label. So if I want to select this whole row, I'll just come to this label here, click on it, it's going to select the whole row. The same way, if I want to select the whole column, click on the label up top here. It's going to select the whole column. We know how to select. Now, let's now assume after I've created this table, I now remember that okay, there is a field that should be added, maybe a column that should be added, which I didn't add. So it doesn't make sense for me to delete, go and recreate again. I can actually add. That's where this insert is. All right. So if I want to, for instance, I want to insert a new column. There's option for me to insert a new column. So you can see the options under rows. We have working for rows and we have for column. So if I want to insert column now, another thing I also need to know is that to point out is, am I adding the column to the right of what I have selected or to the left? Are we together? So now I've selected these columns. The new column I want to add, am I adding it to the left, meaning between this column and this one, or am I adding it to the right? I need to know that. So if my intention is to add a column, so let me just label this. So let's say this is going to be A, this is going to be B, this is going to be C, and this is going to be E. So that means there should be a D before, right? So what I'll do is if I select this whole column, that means I need to add a column before E and after C. So once I select this E, I'll come under column. I'll say add to the left or to the right. So that means I need to add to the left. So if I say add insert to the left, it's going to insert a new column to the left, on which I can now put my D. Are we fine? The same way we can do that for our row. So if I select this and I select this whole row, I select this whole row by clicking on this label, I can also add either above or below. Do you get that? So if I want to add below now, I'll just say add a cell below. It's going to add a cell below this guy. Let me add again so you see. Can you see? So the reason why you were not seeing before was because I did not put any text inside, so you didn't see. And also if you want to delete cell, you can also delete by just selecting the whole row. You can say delete this row. The row will be deleted, delete. So I will keep deleting and it will be deleting. Do you understand? So if I want to delete this guy, I can select this also and say delete column. All right? Okay. So the next one, we have option to merge cells. So let's look at merging cells. So if I highlight these cells, for instance, so how I can highlight is by coming again. Another way to highlight is by coming to any of the cell, click, hold my mouse and drag over the cells that I want to merge. So if I drag over this number of cells, I have option to merge. So we have three different merge options. You can set merge all the highlighted cell, or you can merge by rows, or you can merge by column. So what does it mean to merge all the highlighted cells? All of them together, it will merge them to be one. Right? And I can unmerge also by having it selected, you see unmerge cell. So let's look at the second option. I can merge by row. So that means it's going to merge this, merge this, merge this. All right. So if I say merge by row, see what I have. Let's unmerge. Then you can also merge by column. Right. So that's margin of cell. Then you can also come in and decide to say, okay, for a particular cell, I don't want all my input values. I don't want anything other than numbers. So that means if I try to put text, it will not take it. Just the same way we want. Sorry. So let's assume this guy here. This is going to be my serial number. So obviously serial number should hold only numbers. So let's say this is going to be my names, and this maybe this is timing. So that means this one should be time. Input value should be date or time, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'll highlight the whole cells that I want. Once I highlight these whole cells, these are just Excel stuff. You come to your cell format. You have option to choose what you want. So general means it takes anything. Yeah. It's because of this. We are still going to talk about cell format, creating our table style. You notice I told you that all this annotation, they will always come out really not okay. They will come out not as we expect. So that's where the style comes in place, where you can create your own style, know the size of text that should come out. Do you understand? So in this case, for this guy, I want it to be number. So I can say this would be decimal number. So we have decimal, no integer. Do we have, okay, so we have whole number. So that means this should take whole number. So if I click here, so that means every input value I have here will always be whole numbers, nothing other than that. So if I try to say I want to put in text and I press enter, it's going to give me an error message that the entered value is not valid for the data type. So that means it has to be only number. So if I come here, I can say 1, it works. Do you understand? I can say 2, it works. I say 3. Do you understand? The same way with this one, like the time now, I can highlight this guy. I can highlight these guys. I can say, okay, for the cell format, we want this to be, there's no time. Is there time? No. So we just say, let's just say this date, for instance. So that means it's going to take only date value. Okay, so please mind you. So you can say this slash 21 and it takes. I'm the one putting it. So if I say this, it will not take it. Because it knows that timing for us to do that, that's the format we have for time. Okay, so talking about your question, what you just said now. There's no time in it, so I use dates. Do you understand? So for that time, you can just use general. and put just time value. So I'm just showing you how to format yourself. So let's assume we want to create a table that will have our text of so I think I have to switch my unit back to this because I don't really understand this architectural thing. So let's assume my text, I want it to be this large, 25. All right. So because in this, with this table now, this is too small. So I would have to go and create a table style and have all these things set. Okay. So now the design I want to have now is that for this table style, I want my title to have this size of text. So let's say 25 for my title. For my header, I want them to be, let's say 15 for my header. And for my data, I want my data to be 15 still. So the title will be 25, the header will be 15, and the data will be 15. So we can set those things. So how we do that is we go to our table style. So we can either do that by coming here under our dates, we see our table style here. Okay, so if I click on the table style, it loads this up. So we only have one style standard, just like we always do. You know, we always have a style. So we have to create from this. We just say create a new style. So we'll call this Joe table style. Oh, sorry. Then we're starting from standard. We just say continue. So it's going to load this table style for us, from which you can now start working. So the way this there is option for us to create new. We'll say new. You should see new. Okay, so like I was, have you gotten just please look up now. So once you have created that table style and we want to modify the table style. So the way the table style works is that you modify cells based on the three different options. Remember those three different options, the title, the header, and the data. Right. So this is where you choose them from. So if you want to work on the data, you choose this. So whatever setting you have here is going to be for the data. If you click here and I say header, whatever thing I have here is going to be for the header. And if I want to do for the title, I have to click here, set for my title. Okay. So I said for my title, I want my text to be 25. That's just the only thing I said. But let's look at other settings. So we'll start from the title. So the text style, cell style, we'll go to title first. The first thing is we want to go for our margin. So we have margin, format. Let's click on this. So format is general. Have that. The fill alignment is centered. I think that is fine. Type is it going to be label or data? I think that's okay. So match cell. Is there an option for us to do that? So let's see. Create a new cell style. Manage cell style dialog box. Okay. I think we don't get to have option to change the text height. So have a margin. Oh, sorry, is there? I'm still in my general. So we come under our text. So we come to the text, there's option for me to now change the text height. So I said I want the text height to be 25, right? Sorry, we need to always look at stuff. So we change that to 25, then maybe the color of my text, I want it to be a particular color. So let's just say we want it to be yellow, for instance, and you can see what we have here. You can also choose a style. If you have a style, so if I've created the text style, you can choose a text style from here. Then you can click on this dialog box also to now change the font for your text. So let's say for my text, we have a particular font that we're going to be using. So let's just use that font now. Just choose one random font. Vani, okay, so maybe Vani is fine. And everything is fine here. Size, apply, and close. So you can see that affects here. So let's assume this is everything we want. For your border also, you can also set your border for your title. So maybe for the border, I want only this side to have that and just have that. So once we are done with this, we'll come to our header also. We change information for the header. So we just change only the text since that's the thing I want to show us. So for the text height, we change this to 15. You can see that. Then for the text style, we'll come here. We want to work with Vani still. Okay. Then let's go to the data. So for this data, we said the data too will be 15, but let's make it 10 so that we can have that hierarchy. Then I think Vani still is what we have. Everything is okay. Then we just click OK. And that has been set. Okay. So if I close this now and I try to create another table. So if I come here to create another table, we now have option to choose a style. Joseph is now added to this text style or this table style. So if I choose Joe table style and I work with all these settings here, just drag from here all the way to this place, setting the same width. So if I put anything here, you can see that it's large as I've set that compared to what we had here. So for the header, I can say this is going to be my serial number. If I had changed this guy, for the header, I change the color to a different color. That's the color I'm going to have. So serial number, name, date, and so on and so forth. So for the data, I can say this is going to be 1, 2, 3. You can see that this is quite smaller than serial number. So this is going to be, you can see the difference. But you notice we have a problem now for the data. All my data are, the alignments are top right. So I need to go and change this. But it's not hard. I can actually change that by going back to my table style. So if I go back to my table style and go and modify the Joe, under my data, I want to change the alignment. So if I come to this general, for the alignment, you can see it's top center. Right? So what I want is, I don't want it to be top center, I want it to be middle center. So we'll come here, we'll find middle center. So it's going to bring my text to the middle and center. And that is set. Once I click on OK, it's going to affect everything. Okay. So the number has its own override. Numbers are set. So for me to change the number, I have to go and change the override of that number. But for the general stuff, you have all this information. If I put anything here now, so maybe this is going to be, sorry, not this time. Do you understand? Everything is set. So the size I have for this one is 10, the size I have for this is 15, and the size I have for this is 25. So you can actually see it. See it. Just give me. Okay. Okay, no problem. We'll wait for you. Let me pause. So that's how you can create your table and modify those things. Set it to whatever you want. And then we have to go to the next thing we have for today, which is properties. So I'm going to delete this table. Just create a couple of shapes here because I'm going to use that to explain properties. So line, Okay. So property, for you to change property, so first off, what are properties? Property are more of characteristics of anything. So everybody, I have my property. Maybe I'm annoying is a property I can possess. We know that I'm dark. That's my color property. I can be short. Those basic things that we know. The same thing in AutoCAD. Every object we create, they have their property. So the major common property that we know for objects in AutoCAD are talking about the color of the object. What color does it have? What kind of line makes up this object? Talking about line type is another property that we'll talk about. Another property we'll also talk about is the how wide, how thick is the line that makes up the object. So that's the line weight property we're talking about. So when we say line weight, we are talking about what's the thickness of the line that makes up the object. Then another property, which is the fourth one, is talking about the transparency level of the object. Is this object transparent? Is it opaque? Those are the major properties we have. So those are more of a geometrical property. We still have other forms of properties that we're going to look at later. But let's look at those four geometrical properties of objects and how to manipulate them, change them to suit whatever we want. So the thing is, for us to look at property, we'll come in our home tab, we'll come to the property panel. We are coming back here. You notice I jumped these two guys. So jumping these two guys is on purpose. And I'm still going to jump this. After this, I will come back to layer today. But we are not talking about this today. All right. So the reason is because this is a simpler topic than this, which is also simpler than this. All right. So that's what I'm coming in. So this is where you look at the property of any object. Now, you notice that under my properties, some things are written there. You have by layer, by layer, by layer. So what's happening? When you don't have any object selected, AutoCAD will only give you property, general property of the drawing. So right now I don't have anything selected. It's just giving me property of this drawing itself, just this drawing. So if I create anything now, it's going to take the normal default property. So maybe you can call that default property. Do you understand? Because I don't have any object selected. So what I'm having right now is the default property. If I'm creating anything, they will inherit this property you are seeing up top. You understand? So if I come here and I create a circle, it's going to inherit all these properties. If I click now, all this property will be inherited. Do you understand? By the circle. So if I select, you notice it's still the same property we have. Then if you select another object, you notice the same property. Now that I have this object selected, it's now showing me the property of the object. But because the object has inherited the default property, so nothing is changing. Am I making any sense? Do you get? If you don't have any object selected, you are going to have a default. It's just like when you come into this room, you have the default temperature. You are inheriting the default temperature. So that means if anybody comes to measure it, you are going to have that same temperature because you are inheriting the default temperature. If I now decide to say, okay, I want to modify my own temperature by putting maybe turning on heater. I have heater and I turn it on. My own temperature will change. Yours will be the same because you're taking it. So right now, as of now, we've not changed any property of any object. So they are inheriting the default property. So for us to change the property, you select the object you want to change. Then we come up here and change their property. So this is the color property I was talking about. You can see object color. This is the line width property. This is the line type property. I said the fourth one is transparency. It's not here. But if I click on this drop down, you have the transparency. So let's look at working our way from top down. So let's change the color of this guy. So under the color, we have this that says by layer. If I click here, I can choose any color that I want, and that becomes the color of the object. You notice now, because this object is selected, that changes to blue. If I escape, it goes back to the default. Do you understand? Like I said, if you don't have any object selected, you have a default property. Then if you now have an object selected, it gives you the property of the object. In the case of this object, I have not changed any property, so it's still showing us the default value. But in the case of this, I've changed the color property, only the color property. That's why the color property is changing. So it's giving me the property of this object. from which we only know that it has all the default property except the color, which we have changed. Do you understand? So in the case of this one, let's assume we want to change the color from this layer. Don't take the layer property, just take maybe yellow. You notice if I escape, you have that. If I select this now, it's giving me yellow. Do you understand? So this is giving me the property of this object now. I can start say, okay, this object, apart from changing the color, I want to change the thickness of the line, that makes up the line. So that means I can change the line width. If I click here, I can change this line width to whatever line width that I want. And that will change. You can see saying 0.5. But visually, are we seeing any difference? No. So the reason why we are not seeing any difference is because there is this mode tool that I need to turn on. And that's the line weight mode. So if I come down here, this is the icon, I know it, but in your own case, you might not have it. I've told you that anytime you're looking for a particular model, you don't have that. You go to your customize, right? You go to your customize, you want to activate whatever thing you want. So the line weight is here now. Okay? So if I deselect this, you notice it goes away. If I bring it back, it comes back. So this is just to bring it down into our status bar. But we know that it's off because it's not highlighted blue. So if I turn it on now, the thickness is now shown. All right? Let me turn off transparency also so that you can see. So if I decide to say, okay, for this line, I want to change the color to red and then change the line weight to this thick, you can see the difference. Do you understand? Hmm? All right. So let's look at this one. If I select this, in the case of this guy, I don't want to change the color, I don't want to change the line width, I want to change the line type. All right. So this is the line type. Then if I click on the drop down, you notice we have by layer, by block, continuous. And if you look at the symbol representing three of them, it's still the same symbol, right? That means layer and block, they are still using continuous. So the type of line they are using is continuous. So what if I want to change it from being a continuous line to a different type of line, maybe construction line, center line, remember the exercise? That call or other things. This is where you can change the line type. Alright? So I need to change this line type from this continuous line to a different type of line. Then if I click here, you have option to others. So if I click on this others, it's going to still bring up a dialog box and that just shows me the three options that we saw here. But we want to load more. So we have option to load more. I don't want to delete. These ones don't do anything. This will delete. This will set current, but we want to load more line types. So if I click on load more, it's going to take up another dialog box from which I can now choose the line type that I want. You can see all the line types are here, their names and their visual representation or symbols. So I can say, okay, I want to bring up this phantom. You hold down control to add multiple, all right? Or you can control A to select all. But mind you, if you are bringing out the line type, it's closed system, so just bring the ones you want. So I'll just bring this two phantom line. I'll scroll up, try and see if I can see a dash line or center line. So so there are center lines as well. Click here, on the center line, I have dash dot, I have dash line. So I just want to bring all the lines that I need. What else? I have this dot line. So let's bring this one to gas. Then hidden line, I have two hidden lines, three actually. So once I'm okay with all these lines, I'll just click OK. It's going to load those lines here. Okay. So I can just close. Then I can select this back and come back to this line type. It would have loaded this line type. So I can choose the line type that I want to make this. So if I say, okay, let's assume this is going to be center line, right? So if I choose center line now, look at what happens. Do you see any change? Yeah, but the center line is quite small. We'll come back to solving this problem now. So if I zoom in, you can see that it's actually center line, but then if at this scale, at this zoom value is very small. But then that doesn't mean it doesn't change that we have changed the line. All right. So let's look at this one. We want to change the opacity of this guy, how transparent it is. So if I select this, I can click on this drop down. I have option to change the transparency level. When we were talking about hatch, we looked at transparency. So it's between a 0 and 90. You get. So 0 means it's very opaque, 90 means it's going to be very faint, but not totally transparent. But you can still see. So if we bring this all the way up, let's just say all the way up to this place and escape, we don't see any change because our transparency is off. So if I turn it on, you can see the difference. Can you see? Okay, so I can actually select this, even make it more faint by bringing all the way to 90, and you can see that there is a considerable, you can actually see the visual change between the 0 and this. So that's how you can change the property of object. But then, this is just the general property, the geometrical property. But what if I want to show other properties? How do we see them? You have to use the command. You have to go to the, so you don't like command. So, but then, if you don't want to use command, but there's an option for you to still go to the property dialog box. So for you to go to the property dialog box, you click on this guy. It's going to load the property. All right? But the shortcut is PR. So it's either I click here, it's going to load the property up here, or I can type the command, which is PR enter. Does the same thing, any of the options. So you notice for the PR command, you have the general property, you have the 3D visualization property, you have the plot style property, you have the view property, miscellaneous property. Then it's telling me that nothing is selected. So, I told you that if you don't have anything selected, it just gives you the general or the default property. So right now, it's just giving me the default property. If I select an object now, it's going to tell me what object I have selected. You see the name here, and it gives me the property of that object. You have the general, you have the 3D, and you have the geometric property. Okay? So let's look at how to modify this. But the first issue we want to solve is, before we even start solving the issue, I can select multiple objects. It's going to tell me that I have 8 objects selected. And now this 8 objects is going to give me their common property. So I can actually change property of all these 8 objects at the same time. But if you look at under this general, some things are named varies. Do you understand? Like in the case of color, it says varies. For layer, it's saying 0. Line type is saying vary. The reason why it's saying vary is because it knows that what all these objects you have selected, they have different colors. But if I want to force all of them to have one particular color, then I can click on this vary, choose a particular color. So whatever color I choose now, all of them will have that color. Do you get it? I'm not going to choose any color. Then I can also decide to say I want to work on only all the circles. So if I want to do that, I can actually select everything in my scene. I say I want to work on only all the circles. If I click on this drop down, I have options. It's telling me I have 3 lines, 4 circles, 3 polylines. So if I want to work on only all the circles, I can just say, I will just pick circles. Then it gives it's still selecting everything. But whatever I change now is going to affect only circles. Everything. I now come here to filter it by only circles. So if I say, okay, filter to only circle, it's telling me I have 4 circles. And if you count, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if I say I want all my circles to have yellow color, notice all of them change to yellow color. I can say, okay, I want to change the thickness, I want to change the line weights, I want to change other things. I can also change them. Do you understand? Even in this property, you can change some things. You notice if I create this circle and I feel that the diameter or the radius is not what I intend creating, I don't have to delete this and recreate. I can just go to the property. I have under the geometry, I have option to change the diameter or the radius. So if you look at the radius value, I'm seeing this. So if I want to create the circle, make the radius 800, I can just come here and change the radius to 800. And any other property that I can see. You can see the center X, the center Y. I can change them and that will work. So if I make the center X 0, see what happens. So it's moving it in the graph. So if I make this 0, it brings it to the origin. You understand? So moving this guy would have modified this. Do you understand? So that changes all those things. Then this is the major, we now have a major problem here to change this, right? And then if I select this line, it's telling me the line that I have is of layer this, the line type is center. Now this line type now has a scale. So right now the scale is 1. And we said that this thing is too small. We need to increase the scale. So if I come to the line type scale, if I bring this line type scale up, you can start to see. So if I feel that, okay, maybe we want it to be 8, you can start to see that. Do you understand? So anytime you put an object and you put the line type and it's too small, you see that it's there but it's too small, just come to the property, change the scale. Or it's too big, you don't see the line type, the graphic representation, you don't see it. It's probably too big. You want to reduce the line. So what I mean by that? So let's assume we created this thing and the line type is of this. So let's make this 100. You can see that we are not seeing the hidden line. That means it's too large. So I need to come here and change the scale, reduce the scale. So if I bring the scale, I can say 50. I'm still not seeing 20. I'm beginning to see the line type. So I can say, okay, maybe let's try 10. So we can from here start working our way down till we are fine with whatever scale. Do you understand? So that's everything with property. Then the last thing I'll just talk about, so I can just close here. So the last thing I'll talk about property is you can actually match property of object. So there is this option to match property. So what match property does, it takes property of one object and transfer it to the other object. So if I feel that, okay, this circle, I want these other three circles to have the property of this bigger circle or the biggest circle, I can say match property. So if I click on match property, it's going to tell me to select source object. So source object, let me not mix it. I think source object is this object I want to match the property from. So it's saying destination object that I want to transfer this property to. So if I click here, let's see what, before I click, so the source object in the case of this is what you are transferring from. Destination is where you are transferring it to. If I click, this one that has opacity, if I come here, the opacity of this guy will override it, and every other property will do. You are picking out the property and transferring it to this.
So you have to click on match property before you have to source.
Yeah, then you now go to I don't understand. You click on object. You can also do that option. So let's use it in this case. We want to transfer this property to this and this. You can select this object first and say match property. It's going to tell you to go to destination now, and that works. You know, I told you that I prefer selecting icon before using command. So this is one of the advantage. So it works also. So that's how to match property. So now that we have this property created for objects, but then I still don't use it. The reason is because, okay, so if I'm doing a real project, a proper project, does it mean I have to be selecting these objects one at a time and start changing property here? It doesn't make sense. It's going to be time consuming. So is there going to be a way for me to automate this thing? Such that if I create this object, it will just take what the property accepts. So I want to, is there a way for me to set cluster of properties, like group of properties, and so that when I'm creating objects, they take that property at the same time. I don't need to be changing them one at a time. How can we do that? There's also a way of doing that, and that's the layer property. So that's why I first talked about property, understanding property, then layer. So what layer property or what layer is all about is just a way of you grouping properties together and giving them one name. That's where it starts. So you're taking properties and you can't be cold, this way is not. So taking different properties and grouping them into one name. then that name is what you can now transfer over. Remember, that's what layer is. So another example, so let me just give us like two examples of layer. So one example is in engineering drawing, when you are drawing or technical drawing. You know, we go into the drawing room with okay for us that are not serious. Even though we are not serious, we still go with two different pencils. Hope you know that. We go with one pencil, all these two H pencil, that yellow and red that we used to do our outline. We now go with HB to sorry outline for the construction. Now we place it for the outline. So why are we doing that? Because we know that that switch is for a particular purpose and the HB is for another purpose. So if you are doing the construction flex, we know what pencil to use. If you are doing outline, we know what pencil to use. So you can see these things as layers. Because that pencil has a particular property which goes well with some particular kind of drawing, with a particular process of drawing. While the other one has a property which will work. So if I'm drawing now and I've done all my construction, so let's assume this is my construction, and inside my construction, so this is the construction. And I know that inside this construction I want to get my L shape out. I've done the construction with paint pencil. I can now say, okay, I want to do the L shape. I can now start using the second pencil that will give me the outline that I'm looking for. So instead of the construction line, instead of this, do you understand? So I will be switching pencil for that's one example of what layer is. So another example of layer that you can also see is in the architectural field, whereby I don't know if you happen to see architectural drawings in AutoCAD. Have you seen it? Have you seen any architectural AutoCAD drawing? You notice that it's colorful.
I don't see all those plans in AutoCAD.
They have different colors.
Those ones, like black and white.
Black and white, we don't have these things. Now, this architecture what they do is they use layers to, and actually this layer system is very powerful. We are going to see also much on this. And we can actually use it to group objects, such that if one object is you want to move on a particular set of objects, you can hide it right and so that you can concentrate on that set of objects. Once you are done with that, it's very important about this. Yeah, but what I actually want to say is, have you seen the AutoCAD screen? When AutoCAD is working, AutoCAD is working on AutoCAD software. Have you ever seen the screen while they're working? If you are, yeah, something like that. That's it. It's always colorful. You utilize layers. I noticed that there are things that have the same color, same property. Like all these ones have a particular color. So all your geometry features are same. I can tell from here that all the things in the toilet, geometry features are same color. All my switch, that's same color. And the other things, this is all my windows are the same color. This is to tell that they utilize their property. If I tell you I want to turn off all my switch, I can actually turn them. They are here. I click on this guy. They have a lot of property. I can turn off some things. Switch some things. So if I select one of them, it's going to tell me what they are. They are by layer. So I come to this place, I'm going to so it's the legs. So I can say, okay, for the legs, I want to turn off all the legs and I'm going to look for all the legs. Okay, so all the legs, if I say I want to turn off all the legs, this is everything inside the legs. So I have the legs to watch. doesn't mean that it's just to hide them so that you don't get in the way. So that's the strength of this layer system. And actually use it as an advantage. So, you see that now. Thank you for that. So, how can we create our own layer system and put all these properties together? And then when we are creating, we can use those things. So, this is how we do that. Come to our layer. Once we come to this layer, we click on this layer properties. If I click on the layer property, by default now, this place is showing us the list of layers we have. And it's actually true. Layers, like I said, the first example I said they are more of pencil, that property. And if you look at it truly, AutoCAD has to give us pencil to work with. That's why we have been working before now. If we just came into this room and we don't have any writing material, we can't write. So AutoCAD is generous enough to give us pencil to work with. So all along, we have been working with pencil zero. Do you understand? So all along, if we create a new drawing, AutoCAD will give us a layer with which we can work with. So that's why if you create a line, you are seeing the line because we actually have a layer. If we didn't have any layer, there's nothing to see. Do you understand? All right. So how can we now create our own layer sets? By default, you see here you have two layer types. Sometimes, in some cases, you have only one layer zero. Right? But in this case, we have two layer zero and depth points. But we want to create our own layer. So if I click on this layer properties, this big icon, it's going to load this dialog box, and we can start to create our own layer. So what we need to know in this dialog box is just like three of them, but we are going to be using two. So we have this create new layer. So this first icon allows us to create new layer. The second allows us to create new frozen layer. We don't need that. Then this allows us to delete layer we've created. This allows us to make a layer current layer. I actually don't need that. I'll show you how to make a layer current layer. So that's why I said two is only what we need. But let's look at how we can create a layer. So if I click on this, notice we now have layer 1. If I click on it again, we have layer 2. Click on it, layer 3, layer 4, we'll continue to add more layers to this. Alright? So if I want to delete layer, just select the layer you want to delete. You see this, it deletes that layer. If I select this, keep deleting layers. Do you understand? So let's look at creating layers. So if I click create a layer, we'll talk about that freeze layer next time. So if we create a layer, we have layer 1, then you can rename this layer by just right clicking on the layer. You see option to rename layer or F2. But let's not use the shortcut because of you. Just right click on the layer, you see rename layer. If I click on this layer, I can give this layer a name. So let's say this is going to be our construction line. Okay. Okay. So for the construction line, let's create another layer. We have another layer, another one, another one. So for the second layer, let's assume this is going to be our center line. Okay. So I'll right click. Oh, this is going to be center line. Right click on this guy, we'll go to rename, we'll call this outline, something like that. So maybe this one we're going to call this hidden lines. Do you understand? So rename this, call this hidden lines. Then the last one, let's say this is going to be our dimension. Okay. So I right click, we say rename dimension. So you notice we've created different layers and we have named them. So what's the purpose of this naming? And what's the purpose of this layer in the first instance? I told us that this layer is just for us to add properties, cluster of properties, group them together in one and put it on one layer. So how do we do that? If you look at each of this layer, if I select this layer, I have their properties here that I can change. So you notice we've looked at color property, we looked at line type, line weight, transparency. Those are the major properties. Major general properties. So for the construction line, we know that construction line will be very faint, right? It's not something that will be too visible. So what I'm going to do is I'll leave the color as this, right? I want to leave the line type as continuous. The line width, I want to leave it as thin. But what I just want to change for transparency is I want to change for the construction line rather, is the transparency. So I'll bring the transparency all the way up to like, let's say 45, all right? And now we have changed that property for the construction line. So for the outline, I want to leave everything as is. The only thing I want to change for outline is the line width. I want it to be very thick. Right. So I'll come to this line type or line width. I'll make it maybe 0.4 if it's not too much. Let's just say 0.35. That becomes the property for the line width. You're going to appreciate that in a moment. Just click in normal, here left click. So if I click on center line, so for the center line, that means I need to change the line type. So what I usually do is I like making my center line blue in color, so it's bluish color, sort of. Then I will go to the line type. I need it to be center line, so I will just come to look for one center line option. So we choose this, and then click OK, and that becomes the property of this line. So for the hidden line, also I want to change the line type, go for hidden line, so we choose one hidden line option, just choose this, and that becomes the property. And also for hidden line, I can decide to say, okay, maybe I want to change the color to red. I can do that. Let's say this shade of red. Then for my dimension, I like having green as my dimension. So I'll just change my dimension to green. Another thing I also like doing for my dimension is to change the opacity. I don't like my dimension competing with my drawing or with my actual object. So I like changing the opacity of my dimension. So let's say the dimension will be 45, just like, eh? No. Transparency. Thicker, you are talking about line width. Good. Transparency is talking about whether it's going to be opaque or transparent. So once we have all these things set, another property you can also set is your plot. I can decide to say, okay, I don't want my center line to be printed. Anytime if I'm ready to print, I can say, okay, for my center line, don't print it. Do you understand? So how do you know which one is printing, which one is not printing? Those ones that have this red sign means they are not printing. Do you understand? So by default, it doesn't want to print them, but actually, I don't want my construction line to be printed. Fine. But I want my outline to be printed, so I'm going to activate it. Do you understand? So I'm going to activate my outline because I want it to be printed. But construction line, I don't want it to be printed. So I'll leave construction line this way. Then for center line, if you want it to be printed, you activate. If you don't want it to, leave it this way. Do you understand? Obviously, my dimension line has to be printed, right? If I have any hidden line, if you don't want it to be printed, yeah, that's done. Yeah, more is more of a cancel. So for my hidden line, maybe I don't want it to be printed, I'll leave it this way. Do you understand? You notice all those ones that don't have this red means they are going to be in your print when you print them. So let's have that. Construction line is not going to print. So once I'm done with this, I'll just close. And now I have my layer settings. So I have my layer 0. So if you want to activate a layer, make layer a current layer, just come to this drop down, choose whatever layer you want. It becomes your current layer. We'll take that property, yes, that's what it means. So if I'm to draw now, for instance, so let's say I want to quickly do my construction line, do my outline first. So I'll go to my construction line. Look at it now. I'll go to my construction line and just quickly create some, you can see what is happening. It's kind of faint. So let's say this is going to be here all the way to this place. Another one, let's just say from here. I just want to do something Actually don't need dimension. So for this, we have this. So let's assume all these things are, I'll use dimension on these guys. So this is my construction line. You can see that they kind of are faint compared to this guy. So let's now say, okay, I'm done with this construction line and I'm meant to draw my shape out of this guy. Okay. So I can now just come here and switch this to my outline because that's what I'm used to get. So I'll go to my outline, then so I will go to the outline. I can say, okay, for the outline, I'm going to have this all the way here, here, here. You can see that it looks more technical, like what these things I was talking about. So you have your construction line here and you have your normal outline. It takes the property that we've set. So if I say that, okay, in this outline, there is an opening here. So I'm going to use hidden line to show this opening, right? Just let's assume it's 3D. There is a hole inside this place. You know, we use 3D hidden line to show what we are not seeing in the orthographic view. So I can say, okay, I'll switch this to my hidden line. And we know that we've changed our hidden line. Notice it gives us all the properties. If we come to this hidden line, we can say, okay, this hidden line is coming all the way from here, this place, and all the way to this place. And that's that. So we are not seeing that hidden line. Do you know why? The scale, right? So that means we have to select this guy, go to the property. So actually the scale is small. So we need to change and increase the scale. So if we go to property, we need to enlarge the scale of this hidden line. So if we make this 10, I think 10 is still small. Let's try 15, 20. So that's fine. So you can see the usefulness of all these properties and all that. So we've done the hidden line. Do you understand? So let's assume we have a circle here, and that circle, we just use our outline to do that circle straight up. And you're going to see what I'm going to do now. So we have the circle somewhere here. Okay, so we have another circle here to create. So I want to do a little bit of a trim here. So I'll just say trim. I'll trim this guy. I'll trim this guy. And I'll trim this. So this is the actual shape I'm looking for. So because there's a circle here, there's need for a center line, right? So that means I have to switch to my center line, create my line. So this center line, there's a line that goes all the way down, and also here. We are not seeing this. The center line is quite small, so we have to do the same thing. Property, go and change the scale. So I think 10 should be fine. This 20 is too much. All right, so that's fine. So you can see the whole drawing gradually coming out. So if I now want to bring up the dimension, do you understand? So I can just, that means I have to switch to my dimension line to bring up the dimension. If I just do my dim link, I can say, okay, for this place, I want to bring up the dimension from here to here. Okay, so that means I need to go and set my dimension, right? So let's just quickly do that. Dim start, so everything looks. So just modify this one. I don't have that time to. Oh man, let's change this back to what I did then. So let's go to the text. We'll bring this text. We don't know the height, so let's just try 30. If and then modify again. The arrow is very important. If I'm changing this to 30, the arrow too has to be changed to the same size, 30. Still small. So modify. So let's say we are changing this to 70. For the text, we make this 70. So that's like double, more than double the size. Okay, so this is dimension for this side. So we can say, okay, this place, we want to get the dimension for this place also. Dim link get the dimension from here to here, again dimension from here all the way to this place. So you can see that we are gradually doing more of this technical drawing stuff. So if you want to get the radius for this one, you know, dim RA for radius. So get radius for this guy, just say somewhere here, and do this for this also. So let's just say it's here. So now we have done this construction. So let's now look at all those things you were asking for. What's the function of the freeze, all these things. Then if you come to this dimension, if you come to this layer style, so let me default this back to 0. If you come to this layer section, you notice you have 3 icons here. So you have the first icon, which looks like Bob, is to turn on and off a particular layer. The next one is to freeze a particular layer, and the last one is to lock a layer. So what does it mean to turn off a layer? It means what it says, turn it off, let it go invisible. So probably you, maybe, okay, so in the case of this now, if I feel that the construction line is distracting, I can temporarily turn it off for me to see what I have. So I can just go to the construction line. I'll click on the bulb, it turns off the construction line. I see this drawing now. Do you understand? If I feel that, okay, the dimensions, I want to turn them off, I can go to the dimension also, turn off the dimension. It goes away. Now, it doesn't mean I've deleted them. They are just off temporarily. Then I still have them. I can also turn off my hidden element. So if I want to bring them back, I can just click it, comes back, they come back. Do you understand? So now I'm going to go back to my outline. I'm going to default this to my outline. Okay, so I want to set this as my current layer. Why I'm doing this is I want to show you something now. What if I want to turn off this outline? I can actually turn it off, but AutoCAD is going to yell at me. It's going to ask me a question that this is your current layer. Do you want to turn it off? See. So you know that outline is my current layer because it's written up here. So if I come to the outline and try to turn it off, it's going to tell you that this current layer will be turned off. What do you want to do? So it's more like telling me that, Joe, calm down. This is your current layer. This is the pencil you want to use to work. And you want to close the lid. Do you want to do it? If I say yes, turn it off. I'll say turn it off. It's going to turn it off. Now, the implication of me turning off my current layer now is that whatsoever I create now will be created. I won't see because it's turned off. Do you understand? So that's that. Then if I want to bring it back, see what I've created. So the second icon is the freeze. The freeze icon does similar thing with the turning on, in that it turns it off. Do you understand? You go ahead. Hmm? That's now the difference I want to show us. But the similarity is that it goes. If I say construction line freeze, it goes away, just like turn off. If I say freeze my dimension, it goes away. But the difference now between freeze and turn off is that you cannot freeze your current layer. You can't, it's not possible. If I try to freeze the current layer, it's going to tell me that. You notice it's not even giving me an option. It's saying this cannot be frozen. Do you understand? You have to go outside that current layer, switch to another one, make it current layer, another one freeze. So what it's saying is that if I'm so keen on freezing my outline, I should switch away from the outline before I can now come back and freeze it. Do you understand? Hmm? So you cannot freeze your current layer. That's just the difference. Okay. All right. So let me go back and unfreeze that. Then we now have the last one, which is the lock. So what the lock does is more of it locks your right now. What's my current layer? 0. That doesn't mean that I cannot select other layers and delete them and modify them. Even though while this is my current layer, I can select this construction layer and delete. It goes away. Do you understand? I can select this one, delete it, while 0 is my current layer. But lock will make sure that you don't modify that layer. Any object in that layer, you don't modify. You cannot move them, but you can snap to them, you can select them. If you want to draw anything, you can snap from them, but you cannot modify them. So if I want to, if I lock my construction line, for instance, it even goes more feet. And what that means is that I can select it, but I cannot delete it. Another thing is that I can actually draw from it. I can snap to it, draw from it. I can snap to these layers, to objects in this layer. I can even snap to this place, come to this place. I can snap. But the thing is, it's just there for me to, as a guide. But I can't modify that layer. I cannot. If I want to delete it, it will not work. If I want to move it, it won't work. That's just the thing with locking layer. Alright? So once you have this layer created and you already know how to modify the layers like this, then the last thing I'll just talk about this is you can actually match objects into layers also, just like matching property. You can transfer objects into a different layer. I won't teach us the long process. There's no that's using this icon. I won't teach us that. It's there. But there's a very simple way that let me just so that you don't say let me just explain it. Do this and show you the method that I use. So you can tell that that's what you might use. So let's say for instance I want to transfer this guy to the outline property. That means I want to take this yellow circle. I want it to take the property of this one, which is outline property. So we click on match layer. So if I click on match layer, so in the case of matching layer, what you select first is the object you want to transfer. You know, for a property, you select the object you are transferring from first. But for matching of layer, you select the object you want to transfer, you want to move. Do you understand? In the case of property, matching of property, you select the source, what you want to copy from first before you now select where you are copying it to. But for matching of layer, you select what you want to copy to first before you now select where you are copying it from. Do you understand? You just remember. So if I was to do match property, if I was to do match property, this is what I'll select first, right? Before I can now select this one to match it here, right? But for matching of layer, I will select this one first. That's it. So if I say match layer, I will select the object, saying select object. Is here. So if I click on match layer, it tells me to select object. Don't forget, this is what I want to transfer. I'll select this first. I'll press enter to confirm. It's now telling me to select object on the destination layer. So I can say, okay, this is the, so any object on the destination layer, I can select it and it matches. If I select this, and it should go. So let's see. Okay, so it has gone actually. It has. But now the thing is that the reason why you are not seeing the change in terms of color is because this object, we have changed this its object property. So what that means is that let's not see ourselves as one. So we have a trait that will have to inherit from that is the master property. But I don't want to say as a branch of the family. I want to enjoy all this stuff. So that has changed my life. But because we have awareness in this they are taking that from me. Or okay, let's just use forward. Because of this completion, the campus completion, I also had this completion that but later, and that's actually the other someone has now 2 million dollars. Do you understand? So even if I'm sure everything, because I have everything to myself, that will so that's what this is saying. When we started, we've changed the object property of this guy. you understand? We've changed the color property which is of this. So that's why we are not seeing the color change. But if you bring your mouse over to this now, you are going to see the layer it's on. Just leave it for a while. It's going to tell you the name of the layer it's on. Is on layer outline. So that means it actually worked. But the color is what changed. So what I need to do is if I select this guy, I need to go and change the color from the yellow. And also the line weight. You notice we have changed both. We have to change them from this to by layer. If we change it to by layer, it will take the line weight of the layer, of the outline layer now. Then we also need to change the color to take the color of the layer. So if we come here and we change this from yellow to by layer, now do you understand? So even if you create any object in a layer, you can still go and change its individual property. The individual property will override the layer property. Do you get? So that's just what happened. So if I want to bring this back to the layer, I have to come here and go and look for which one is not tallying with by layer. And so in the case, everything is saying by layer except color. So I have to switch it to by layer. Do you understand? Hmm? So that's everything with layer. Do you have any questions before we start about that one? Good. Let me see. Okay, so let's start with this. Then the assignment of the change. That's what it is. So, assignment. So let's do page 178. This is the start. Why is it? So, this is what we're doing. This is what okay, so let me start.
So you don't have that, you just don't.
There's dimension there.